Welcome back to the opening of the third season of Inside Great Lakes Sailing here on YouTube. My name is Greg Norman, your host. We really look forward to a very active summer on the water. We thought we'd get started here in early April. The weather hasn't quite changed yet. Mother Nature is a little bit fickle, but we thought we'd get off the ground here in the early part of April to see exactly what is coming up with sailing. And our first show is hopefully will be an indication of good stuff that sailors bring to the interview table. We start off this show with Bora Gulari, a member at Bayview, who's also an Olympian, member of the American Magic T52 Doug DeVos team, and a world champion in a number of boats. We look forward to talking to him. Typically considered a quiet kind of guy. I think he really opened up, and I think you're going to be really interested in learning a little bit about Bora, his time on the water, and being the son of two college professors. I think we learned a lot about him, and it was a very interesting interview to open our third season. We're going to follow that up with the Crescent Sail Yacht Club's Commodore, Ken Swetka, who was really successful this winter down in Florida. He's going to talk a little bit about his time on the laser. And then we follow up with something I think is important. We always talk about the importance of safety. And there's some heroes in our midst. Liam Walls and Eula Goldsweiser will join us for being awarded saving a guy's life. And U.S. Sailing was giving out awards for saving a man's life. And we're going to talk to them about the importance of safety, what it's like to actually save somebody's life, and then talk about what you might consider for your own boat this coming summer, just to make sure that all the other ends are kind of taken care of. A really quick point. We've been doing this show now for about 2.5 years. We've done 66. This will be the 67th show to begin the third year. And we thought this year we would ask of you a little bit of help. Liam Walls, who you'll find later in the show, is involved in an Olympic campaign, much the way Bora Gulari was. And we're going to try and help Liam and his brother get the chance to be able to compete nationally. And there'll be a little bit of a commercial. If you can reach into your pocket and help out the Walsh brothers with a little contribution, the address will be posted. They're sailing a 49er in the Olympic channel, if you will. And we'll have them on later in the season to talk about it. But we'll give you a little bit of a commercial. And if you can help it all out, you watch the show and it's been enjoyable, send Ian, Liam, and his brother a couple of bucks. It would be appreciated to help their Olympic campaign along. They're two of the nicest young men you'll ever meet. And that's sort of my commercialism for today. Later in the show, you'll see a little bit about Liam and his brother. So if you can help out, that'd be great. We look forward to the start of the third season, and I think what's going to be a great summer. Stay tuned for Bora, and we'll be back in a second.
We're talking with Bora Gulari, one of the best sailors in America. Bora, I'm going to start the third season off with a very simple question. You have an engineering degree from the University of Michigan. You are a tactician beyond belief. You're thought of as a, very skilled sailor, but is sailing an art or a science?
I think it's a little bit of both. And there's no one thing or the other. There's a lot of really smart sailors who can kind of not get past the point of the technical side to really succeed. And then there's other skilled sailors who don't embrace the technical side, which would probably help them succeed more. So yeah, I don't think it's one or the other. It's combination of both.
Can you be a world-class sailor and not have feel?
That'd probably be pretty tough. You got to listen to the boat. It's kind of always the other person in the room talks to you. You just got to know what it's saying.
And with the changing of technology, with all the things that change, if you don't pay attention, you may have all the feel in the world. But if you don't pay attention to technology, you're going to be behind. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on what class you want to go in. I mean, not everything is required. Not every class needs like the latest, greatest technology, but tried and true does work in a lot of the classes.
What makes you happy on a sailboat?
Going faster than other people.
Okay. Let me take it all the way back. You were born in Turkey, correct?
Correct.
How did you end up in Ann Arbor?
My parents were professors, and my dad got a position at University of Michigan. My mom was a lecturer at that point at Eastern Michigan before she got a tenure track professor spot at Wayne State, and that was kind of it.
What did dad teach?
Chemical engineering.
Okay. What was mom's discipline?
Chemical engineering.
Okay. So it kind of comes from home. What was your engineering degree at What was your engineering degree at the University of Michigan?
Aerospace engineering.
So if you're not sailing professionally, I'm assuming you're working in the aerospace industry?
No, I'm at this point, I would say I'm a full-time daddy daycare for the most part. Family.
Okay.
Yeah, I think through growing up and having two professional parents, I wanted to make sure our kids get as much time with their parents as humanly possible. Probably being a little bit selfish is pretty fun to play with my son.
If you never stepped on a sailboat, what would you be doing today?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I always would. I probably would have tried to chase down Rutan's Applied Composites, or what is this company called? I would definitely be enjoying airplanes more. I like them.
Okay. So let me start in the beginning. When's the first time you step on a boat? Did mom and dad both sail?
Yeah, but we were windsurfers. I guess that's not true. My dad had a Banshee. I must have been about 4 or so years old, and I would go ride around with him.
So that's
even not true. My first time that I was on a boat, I was a couple months old. My parents had a 505 at that point, and they would take me sailing with them on the 505.
Well, I'll assume in the sake of sanity, you don't remember when you were 5 months old sailing. I get that part of it, but what was your first recollection of sort of? Did you start an optimist? I mean, how did you start the sport for you?
Nope, never did any of the junior sailing. I literally started on a windsurfer. I have pictures of me with a umbrella because they didn't have kids rigs small enough at that stage. And yeah, I would kind of sail around with my was effectively a clone of a DeFore wing. It was a Bic, I don't remember exactly what they called the thing, but it was a Bic windsurfer. And yeah, my dad must have given me about 10 or 15 golf umbrellas, big puff, let go, and he'd come get me and tow me back up when he actually I could somehow stay upwind with an umbrella and reach back and forth. He was always pretty impressed about that.
Did you start sailing here in Detroit, or was it back in home?
It was actually in Ann Arbor, on the Huron River.
Okay.
Gallup Pond had much less weeds at that stage. That was sort of it was there in Cass Lake that we would go sailing. No, that's not true. Whitmore. Probably it was either in Whitmore Lake or Gallup Pond. Those are two primary locations.
In the development years, when did the youthful competition start? When did you start competing?
Oh, we would travel to regattas as pretty much as early as I remember. I'd be about 5 years old, and at that stage there was no other kids, so I would end up racing with the women, and I probably used a few dirty tricks to beat my mom at that stage. I I've looked at some of the first trophies, and they were women's windsurfing trophies for me. So,
Did mom know you were pulling the tricks?
oh yeah, she was
Okay.
just that good of a sport.
She was okay with
Waiting
that.
for her to wait up for me, and then I try to pass her.
All right. When did it occur to you, and maybe it didn't, but when did it occur to you that you were better at this than others?
I don't know. I don't think anything is. Yeah, that's sort of a weird one for me to answer. I enjoyed the competition side of it from sort of, I don't know, once my parents took a sabbatical in Palo Alto in California. My dad was at Berkeley, my mom was at Stanford. We got shortboard sailing there, and that was sort of the beginning of the shortboard revolution time, and got to sail in a lot of wind. And then after that, we kind of continued doing shortboard sailing, and that was lots of fun. And I didn't really get back into true sort of racing competition until I discovered the University of Michigan sailing team. Well, that's not true either. I'm sorry. I started sailing on Phil O'Neill CNC 41. That was the first time I got back into sailing competition. And I remember thinking that would be cool because we were in Hawaii at that stage, and I was windsurfing, and I saw the Kenwood Cup going by, and I sailed out to check out these big boats that were just happening to be sailing by us.
When did Bayview come in play?
As soon as I started sailing with Phil O'Neill.
Okay. So your parents became members there?
No, my parents never became members there. I was in college at that point and became an intermediate member from sponsorship from Phil and his father. And yeah, that was that. And I started sailing in college shortly after. Got to start driving my own boats, and kind of learn the ropes that way. It was a good way to learn the rules and get lots of races off in a short period of time. And around that time also, there was a television station or channel called Speed Vision. And I remember before my first class, at 8 a.m., they would show the 18-foot skiff racing from Australia. So I would watch that as I was kind of eating breakfast and waking up. I'm like, hey, that looks pretty cool. I can't be a windsurfer. I mean, being a shortboard sailor in Michigan at that stage was pretty lackluster. The equipment hadn't quite evolved to the point where you could have good enough conditions to plane all the time. So sort of looking for something else.
Or I lived in like California for a long time, and I lived at the beach, and you kind of remind me a little bit of a surfer. And I say it in the best context is that you seem casual about sailing and just in talking with you, but to be able to compete at the level you compete, there has to be a fire within that is second to none. And I know, is that a fair estimation?
Yeah, I don't know if it's fire or sometimes some weird insecurity. I mean, competition. I think a lot of the really good competitors, no matter what the sport, they always have self-doubt, and sort of one of the ways to get past that self-doubt is going and doing something where you can sort of prove to yourself that you're good at it. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I've thought about that in the past. What is the driving force? But I can't decide if it's fire or affirmation. I don't know.
The chip on the shoulder helps you concentrate better, I would think.
Yeah, I think it is a motivating factor for sure.
At University of Michigan, I'm assuming you guys were sailing 420s at the time?
Oh, they had the keelboat of dinghies at that stage. We were sailing at that club JY15s, which were well used, and they were interesting. When we traveled, we got to sail 420s and FJs. I remember at the stage where I thought Club 420 was a high performance sailboat. No, that was not so much the case, but at the time, that's what I thought.
We have some amazing sailors in the Great Lakes. You are one of those guys who sort of got to the regional, national, international level. Why don't we have more of those sailors at that level, knowing the kind of talent that's here?
That's a good question. I think at this stage, it has to start early, but the balance is in between kids having fun and sort of the soccer mom overseeing, like, or parents pushing kids into racing. I mean, I can, from a distance, I can see kids doing something that they're good at and then not necessarily having fun. And if that's the case, it probably won't stay with them forever. And I think that's one of the problems we have as a nation as a whole. Like, a lot of our talented kids don't end up sticking with it because they're doing more than is probably necessary as a kid, you know?
I always talk about, sort of sandlot ball. You spent some time in Ann Arbor. I'm guessing a lot of the time on the Huron River, you and your windsurfer, not necessarily coach, just went out and played. Just went out and had fun with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly to spend more time with my parents, get to be on the water with them. And sort of going back to what I was saying earlier, I think we are, at least in the Great Lakes, I think Chicago's made some strides, and the Scowbillies and all the Scow sailors, I think, have it. I have the perception that we're pushing the wrong boats on our kids and not letting them enjoy this. I already brought up the enjoyment of the sport, but I think there needs to be a little bit of a mindset change on how to develop sailors in terms of what boats to put them in and make sure that they're enjoying what they're doing. It's kind of my thought.
Could junior sailing improve by being a little less structured?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think there's a place for the structure for some kids, but I think I've tried to get people to move on at my club, but I think the fundamental thing is you got to put kids into, if they actually enjoy the sport, you got to put kids into a boat where they can identify with what they dream of doing. If that makes any sense. I mean, opties are great, but really, what are they? There's a lot of to succeed at the opties might not be the best skill set to really long-term gains in the sport. Yeah.
I see, kids watch TV now. You see the America Cup boats, you see foils. You don't see a lot of foils at the lower end, partly because of cost. Clubs have invested lots of money in, 420s and opties and those kinds of boats. Sometimes I think cost is a factor in change as well in sailing. Is that a fair estimation?
Yeah, I think so. But there is options now. I mean, there is boats that are good foilers for juniors, and maybe they're not racing them, but at least get the kids' feet wet and they can start growing from there. I mean, there's nothing special that the America's Cup programs or the Sail GP programs that are doing to bring kids up into the sport that cannot be handled on a local level. Honestly, if I could snap my finger, I would get Skeetas for Bayview, and you'd have the first sort of foiling junior group in the area.
Is cost an effective argument for not growing the sport?
I personally don't think so, but I'm not the most fiscally responsible individual.
Okay.
So
No,
that's probably not. I'm not a true answer on that. I think that if you want to do something, you got to find a way to make it happen.
I asked the question as a non-racer looking inside the sport, having spent some time with the junior sailing program. I'm involved in the ski world in the winter, and we found a way to take 250 vertical feet of race sail and end up building a program from 25 years ago to put kids on the Olympic team. because we just figured out that you had to have mileage, and mileage, whether or not you're 6,000 feet high or 1,200 feet high, you just had to continue to do the kind of process. And lo and behold, our program, 5, 6, 7 years in, started to be able to put kids in an Olympic level and it's sort of level the playing field. Something as simple as, instead of riding a chairlift, we put a rope tow in, so kids were building their arms while they're going up a rope tow, which is something they didn't do out west. So I think there's ways to skin a cat 1,000 ways. And sometimes I don't think we are a little bit myopic in our approach to things, but I don't see enough kids in Sandlot sort of approach and just go out and sail and not have to worry about, all of the technical aspects, or having somebody coach them every 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the sport to grow, you better start at the bottom. So
yeah. Let me take you back to the University of Michigan. We did a story last year on the University of Toledo, who actually was in the top 10 of offshore racing with some very talented young folks. They, talking about NCAA. Was Michigan your first chance to sort of look over the hill a little bit and see more of a national landscape as a sailor?
Yeah, for sure. Because I remember the like, holy crap, you can go to regattas every weekend, Yeah, so that was sort of the beauty of CSA or whatever, the Interscholastic College Sailing, ISCA, and the local MCSA, and yeah, it was.
Who was your first mentor? Who was your first coach that sort of saw what was available and saw the talent in you?
I believe it or not, I've not had any real coaching until later in my career. I would say I had teammates that helped me along, and I'll say the first one of those was actually Nathan Marshall. Helped me, and believe it or not, it was a lot of the crews that I got to sail with helped. It shouldn't be a surprise. And the crews, they'd spent junior sailing and they've done all the prep work up to that point. They got to college and there was basically a windsurfer, not necessarily knowing all the rules and how everything worked. There was a lot of tutelage just from peers, and I think that it was good and bad, but it was what it is what it is,
So a lot of the learning experience up front in the early days was just trial and error.
Yeah, reading about it. I mean, just reading and doing.
Were you obsessed?
Probably.
It was
taking everything I could.
In those days in college. What was 1 and 1A? Was it having parents that were professors? Was it sailing before engineering or engineering before sailing?
I would try to do both. I mean, I would remember coming home from when we drove to a regatta and come back at Sunday nights, pretty much always turned into all-nighter to get all the assignments done for Monday morning. I think you would end up, Tuesday I would get to take off, and in terms of not having to stay up really late hours, and then Wednesday it was kind of back on, and Thursday you were sort of getting ready to go to another event, and you just survive the weekend and rinse and repeat kind of thing.
So out of college, you get your degree, you look over it again, look over the landscape, look over the mountains. When does it become apparent to you that this is something you want to do that's just more than a hobby?
Well, just sort of enabling from my parents. I had dubiously got a motorcycle in college, and my parents were quite keen to get me off of that, so they made a deal to help me get a sailboat, which was a old 49er in trade for sorry, I thought I heard my son. In trade for getting rid of the motorcycle, and that was sort of the start of it. I got into something where I was allowed to start fiddling and playing with making foils better and doing all the stuff that I enjoy at that stage. So,
what kind of motorcycle?
Oh, it was a Yamaha FCR 600.
Okay. So Bob didn't think that a street bike was probably the way to go.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Well, the 49ers, the first boat you ended up with is
Yep.
that's a rather unique looking, different kind of boat. So it's almost to the point where you've got to be competitive with it because that's about the only thing you can do with it.
It was definitely challenging. I remember first couple of times, like I was a baby member at that stage, and I went out and launched, and it happened to be, I think, a Father's Day fleet review, and came back. I'd taken my dad sailing, and it's just thing was a handful. We capsized a fair amount of times as I was learning, and capsized in the harbor entrance while the fireboat was spraying and couldn't get to the dock because all the power boats had blocked the ramp, and I might have been yelling. It was definitely a learning experience, but I think that was a joy. Like I really, it's all the wind sports and everything that I get into, like I being the sort of on the steep part of the learning curve where every day you go out, your skill set is getting better and better by leaps and bounds. That's really appealing, and so that was sort of where I went.
That's a 2-person boat, right?
Correct.
Who'd you sail with in the early days besides Dad?
Oh, let's see. Matt Wenzer sailed with me for a while. I took Adam Hollerbach out a few times. It was really a struggle in the 49er class in the States. There wasn't that many sailors doing it, and I ended up starting the crew, and that was also good, kind of learning from more experienced helmsmen. But after a while, I kind of gave up on that, or not gave up, but it became too hard, and I wasn't enjoying it. And that was sort of the real start of where I got more into sailing, because I started seeing these things called moths, and being able to sail by yourself was just a big draw. I was mainly kiteboarding at that point for enjoyment.
You're a solitary creature?
I wouldn't say I'm a social creature.
Okay. The 49er is unique. You're familiar with the Walsh brothers. Liam Walsh specifically is trying to campaign a 49er into the Olympic program. I'm sure he's had conversations with you about that boat. I just find that it's such an unusual boat, sort of the first boat you've got coming out of college of all the boats to be able to sail. Was it just available? Because it's such not a typical boat.
Yeah, but I as a windsurfer, I want to go fast, and that kind of ticked the box. You could be powered up in light air. And
okay. So from the 49er, what's the next step from there? The Moss, you said?
Yeah.
And you've won a couple world championships on the Moth, am I correct? 2009?
9 and 13, I believe.
When was the first international race or national championship you won?
Oh, I think it was 2008. Like, we got the boats, and me and George Pete at that stage, he just finished the Volvo Ocean race on ABN 2, and he came back, and it was really, I would say all my success was mainly due to him and working with him. I mean, we it's kind of like nothing happens by yourself, and we'd go and sail every day, and he would go off and do pro sailing, and I would fiddle and work on stuff and come back and, hey, I think I made something good here, and we confirm it and then carry on, and kept trying. And then I think in 2008 I went to the let me backtrack. It was the winter the winter before 2008, we said we're going to go to Australia, go sail the Moss there. They went an active fleet. Roland Veal, who was like kind of the face man and promoter of international Moss sailing at that state, said we could come stay with him. We bought some boats down there, and off we went. We kind of started a couple. We must have done it for like 5 years, where we'd go spend a month plus in Australia, do the winter sailing there, and then come back to the States. But remember, we did the first nationals there, and we was in a place called Wallaroo. There was lots of great white sharks around. There was dust devils everywhere, and we went. They said in the regatta itself that our scoring wasn't going to count in the regatta, and we were actually getting grief for inhibiting or affecting the results. And this was in one of their class meetings, and being a bit more fiery at the time, I might have chucked the chair as I was walking out. And I think I actually endeared myself to quite a few of the Australians and probably pissed off a few of the others. But yeah, we went to the Australian Nationals. I can't remember how we finished. Bear probably has a better memory than I do on that stuff, but came back, spring hit. And that was actually the whole reason we were able to get there was Hanson Bratton sort of gave us a little bit of sponsorship money to just go make it happen, and just benefactor. He didn't have any sort of financial means to make that happen besides buying the boat. And I was already stretching things thin, but yeah, went there, and then we went to the Worlds in Weymouth, and I figure I would have probably ended up second or third if I got to sail for the last day, but I ended up leaving to make the Mackinac race. And the next year I was able to win the Worlds.
That's your first international title?
Yeah, that was definitely the first international deal. I remember going into it thinking I'd put in like a lot of energy, as much prep as I could deem, and I sort of told myself, we'll see how this goes. If I don't have success, maybe it's time to view this more as a hobby than something I should follow through further on. It was sort of a moment, and then lo and behold, I did pretty well. I'm like, oh, I guess I can justify carrying on.
So in 2008 or 9, how old are you at that point?
33.
Okay, so still young enough to be able to, sort of be that vagabond and not have to worry about family and house and kids. And
yeah, living out of a van, traveling, just spending time on the water.
so between college and that point, that was just sort of a build up to that point before you sort of get on the national horizon. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, in between sailing Melges 24s with Chuck Holzman and Simon Strauss, and just kind of getting my feet wet in other competitive fleets, but the Moth was really my baby.
You make mention of Melges. We were fortunate enough to have both of Melges, the grandson and Harry, on last year. You were the points leader with 2021.
Yeah, I sort of won. Yes, I think they even said I won in 2020 too.
You did.
The ranking series. Yeah, I got to win it last year for sure.
Do you like the 24s?
I won the national ranking series for the 24s last year, and I think I won it the year before also.
Right, but I'm saying, do you like the 24, the boat?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a great boat, and one of the things I love about it is it does it all. I mean, the one design racing is great, but for the you can take it out in perf racing and have great success. I mean, going boat for boat with 40 footers, it's pretty fun.
All right, let me back up from 10 to you make the Olympic team in 16. And
Yeah.
what happens between 9 and 11, 12, 13? What happens during those years?
I think I just carry on with my moth sailing. I meet I start dating my wife. Have a couple moth worlds that I might have been able to perform better on, but I misjudged the preparation. And then 13, there was a Melges Worlds in San Fran, followed by a Moth Worlds in Hawaii, and that was during the America's Cup in San Fran. That was all a pretty fun year, and yeah, just I don't know, just doing sailing bum stuff.
So let me take you to 16. You're sailing, am I correct? Nycras? Am I saying that wrong?
Yeah.
Nycras. Again, I don't explain to the new guy. What is a NACRA?
NACRA actually started off as an American manufacturer in Long Beach that was North American Catamaran Racing Association. I can't. I have to look back
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But they ended up being bought by a Dutch group, and manufacturing moved out there. I'm pretty sure Pete Melvin was always associated with NACRA and still is. And they got the selection after Tornado was removed from the Olympics for being the Olympic catamaran when they brought it back. They had, I think, women's match racing for one cycle, and then they brought back the catamaran. And at that stage, I'd tried my hand at the America's Cup sailing with Luna Rosa, which was, they're wonderful people and it was great. Got to be involved in such a big thing, but it is it's a machine and it's tough to, and I guess the biggest problem there was my girlfriend still at the time is a doctor or in med school, and not gonna spending your whole life away from the person that you love was pretty hard, and it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So once Luna Rosa kind of packed it up for that year, I came back and was kicking around stuff to what to do, and Charlie McKee sort of said, why push me to try out and do the small boat thing again and Olympic sailing, and I got into NACRA, and through some gracious sponsors and support, I was able to put together a group, sort of a team that helped us get to the Olympics and compete. Probably should have just had a little bit more. I don't know. The Olympic sailing was interesting. Whereas moss sailing, at least a decade ago, people were very open. There was a little bit of rivalries, but it was there wasn't so much information hoarding. And you go to the Olympics, and information and technique was almost intellectual property, and it was very hard to learn. Like
How so?
Just simple things on like what to do with controls when you're going upwind or downwind. Like you would rig settings, tensions. Coaches will they protect the transom of their coachees, and they would bump boats. I mean, it's pretty interesting. So I probably was ready for the Olympics on the last day of the Olympics, if that makes any sense.
No, I'm assuming that you've got the colors on as we're talking. I'm assuming that it's different than anything you've ever done, because now all of a sudden it's a world competition. Not that the others aren't. Now you're representing your country, and not everybody gets comfortable that easy in those kind of situations.
Yeah, that was always a dream. I mean, I always liked watching or like representing my country and my state, my city, and yeah, I don't know. That part was pretty easy in my mind. You just go out there and do what you do.
We're in I never can say it right. Rio de Janeiro in 2016, and we heard all kinds of discussion about the pollution and all the other stuff. Did you guys run into any of the stuff that we saw from the TV cameras?
Oh yeah, it was definitely real. I mean, we saw a couple times some I don't know if they're domestic animals or farm animals, kind of unfortunately floating by, and there was an amount of plastic, and in certain parts you would be the water quality was worse, but at the same time we looked and saw locals and kids just getting in the water and thriving with it. So I mean, I took the approach of just embrace it and start drinking out of taps and everything I could, and yeah, I seem to do okay with that.
The Olympic dream kind of stayed. You were involved in the NACRA 17 World Championships. Later in this show, there's some guys that are going to be awarded some medals as part of a ceremony for saving some lives through U.S. sailing, Liam Walls being one of them. Now, you had a bit of an accident. I don't want to, spend all day on it, but you had a bit of an accident from the 17 World Championship tryouts.
Yeah, I lost a couple fingers, unfortunately, and yeah, it was just ran out of hands and was a bit out of control. And when I was flying off the boat, and sort of after I've been done with the NACRA, I kind of realized that that's soiled my willingness to be on a trapeze on a foiling boat. I think that's yeah, you get, as you grow older, some things you just don't want to do anymore. Too tiring. But yeah, the traveler wrapped around my hand came tough before I hit the water, and it was a high enough speed crash where it just cinched some fingers off.
What would you say to the guys that are less experienced than you about safety on a boat that size? Just pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, don't wrap ropes around your hand if you can avoid. Is one of them. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there'll be people that disagree, but I just don't think foiling boats, the NACRA is a very it's a boat that was created for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
And I think the manufacturer made some significant
After
error.
the injury, you had a bit of a sort of a comeback to maybe sail in 2020, and then
Yeah, did it for a while, and I think it was one of the things where you just try to get yourself back on the horse, prove you can do it, and then after that, and sort of
you had a partner, Helena Scott. Am I saying that right?
yeah, Helena.
So you had obviously Mitch this too. Your partners from Washington, in terms of Helena Scott. How do you end up with partners how do you pick partners in that situation?
It's this weird sort of dating. There's so few people around that do it. And you can you have to do it to meet them, and then once there's opportunities, you see if it works out. And Helena was a great person to sail with. He's a very talented individual, and I got to sail later on with Louisa again, who's one of my favorite people in the whole world. She's a gem.
Okay. Well, you obviously had some great success after that, 21s, and I don't want to keep you all day, but I got to touch briefly on, you got involved in the TP52, something that we've done a lot of stuff on the show. So all of a sudden, DeVos calls and you're back on Quantum as a part of the deal. When you're on a boat that fast, and I'm sure you've gone, just talk a little bit about what it's like to campaign on that series.
That's a whole nother world. I mean, the amount of energy that goes into it, and it's like a professional race team. So that the amount of skill that everyone has and competence is just through the roof. And I was very lucky to get the invite to be on that boat. At the same time, I think I wasn't quite ready for that either, because just being the massive team environment, and it was a very big learning experience for me.
Like it?
Yeah.
Gonna stay with it this summer?
Oh, I love doing the big boat series. I love distance racing. That's kind of it's sort of the opposite side of the sport from the buoy racing. The buoy racing on big boats can be a lot of work versus the reward level, but distance racing on big boats is just wonderful. I mean, it's sort of one of the you get a lot of come to Jesus, I'm really alive right now moments where you're battling thunderstorms and taking big tactical risks, and luckily enough, most of the time they work out for me. So
Sail GP's coming to Chicago in I think June. How big of that is that for Great Lakes? Because I asked the question because the TP52 series, both the Mediterranean, what was then the California series, the Great Lakes Championship series here is pretty darn good sailors.
Yeah, I mean, during the last couple of years when Super Series wasn't around, that was probably the highest level of Grand Prix sailing in the States for sure.
How big is Sail GP coming to Chicago? Is that a big deal for us?
Yeah, you would say so, but yeah, I mean, I think they have really good boats, and I think they have a lot of exposure, and they do some really nice things. Um,
I,
is it gonna get say, I mean, I don't know what it means for the sailing in the Great Lakes in general. I mean, it's great that they're coming, but the racing is for spectators, and I don't know if it's just a philosophical thing. Like,
okay. I'll leave you with this last question because it's still, after doing about 70 shows over the last couple of years, it's still, you are one of the best sailors in the world. Yet the rewards, and I understand that sailing isn't baseball or football and it doesn't have those kinds of things. It just shocks me in this area to recognize I'm not talking to Tiger Woods of golf, but I sure saw maybe I'm talking to Phil Mickelson. And the fact that more people don't know the quality that we have here in the Great Lakes with somebody like you and, Olympic members, why are we not more mainstream?
are you talking about sailing as a sport or sailing Great Lakes?
No, acknowledgement from the rest of the sporting world of just how much talent's here and being recognized at a much greater level. I sometimes think we feel like you guys, again, the talent you have, I feel like we're like an ugly stepchild. And I say that as sail racing in general.
I guess maybe it's a sign of the quality of the people involved. I don't know. Is it the better person that says, beats their chest and say, look at me, I'm the best? Or is I've always been of the perspective of, if you're good, other people will talk about you. So I don't know, I don't know why. I don't. It's a weird sport because a lot of people do it for enjoyment and a hobby, and with that, they can
You've
it's not
described
it's
go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry. A jinx there. I don't know how to answer that. The New York yacht clubs and the California and some of the St. Francis, and they have a lot of good things going on, and they spend a lot of money to make it happen. And I don't see that sort of investment from our clubs. Now, that being said, like there are programs, like you mentioned, that can do a lot with a little. And I think Crescent has been sort of an example of that in the Detroit area. I mean, it's not doing a lot with a little. They have lots of resources, but it's not about the money. It's about the drive, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to really answer that question. Why it's not a bigger thing. Sailing can be a solitary thing. You're on a boat most of the time. People can't see you, and if you enjoy it, like what do you do? I mean, there's ways like the Sail GP. We can have stadium racing at clubs, and we can do some stuff to promote the sport. But what's the goal? I guess in my mind, the goal is always to have younger sailors and keep the sport growing. One of the example I take of that is like ice boating. I mean, that's some of the highest performance stuff there is, and I get to do it, and I haven't done it in a couple of years. And the guys that are into it are for the love. They're doing it for the love of the game, but they still struggle to grow the sport. So there's some sort of balance there.
Well, you've described yourself in a couple of interviews as being kind of the grumpy old man, and I have not found that to be even close to being accurate. It is so cool to interview you, and what you notice from the outside. And I say this from a long time interviewer of various subjects. The size of the heart must be 3 times the size of your house, and you can just see the competitiveness. And it's just, this has been a really fun conversation, and I appreciate you taking the time to get to know you. And I think people that watch this will know more. Even people that know you, I think, will know more about you than they did before. And that's pretty cool.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. I can when the switch turns on, I definitely have a little bit of a polar personality. So this is on me.
Something just popped in my head, and this is the last question, absolute last question. J24s, excuse me, Melgus 20 stadium racing. You mentioned stadium racing, so I have to ask this question. J70s or Melgus 24s?
Oh, Melgus 24s all day long.
Okay.
But I mean, the right thing in my mind would be to do moss sailing in the river. One of the things why I succeeded in hydrofoiling in the moss class was we actually have one of the best spots in America for foiling, and it just happens to be on the Detroit River. And yeah, and there's much like the hydrofoils, you could set something up pretty cool. And we've tried in the past, but it takes someone to drive the whole thing and have continuity. It's a tough thing to be a sailor and do that at the same time.
Bora, thank you for taking the time. This has been a really fun. It's going to be a great interview for the opening show of season 3. So appreciate your time. I hope our paths cross this summer. I really do.
All right, well, I'll be around. Enjoy the spring if it ever comes.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank Bora Gulari for his conversation. As I mentioned to me, he reminds me a little bit of those surfer guys. He's, the fire burns inside, but once you get him talking a little bit, it was a very enjoyable interview, and I can't wait to get a chance to meet him this summer, hopefully on the water, if at all possible. Coming up is Ken Swetka. Ken's going to talk about lasers in Florida, and another soft-spoken guy who knows how to sail a boat. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're with Ken Swetka, the Commodore at Crescent Sail Yacht Club, who has had an unbelievably successful winter sailing lasers down in Florida. You're wearing your Martin County shirt from last year. We had some success. And this year you were at the 22 Laser Masters, which you took a third. So let's talk a little bit about the results of the first race. And then obviously you won the second race. So maybe talk about the first one first.
Yeah, they're two very distinctly different venues. In Palm Beach, it's a long sail up. We sail out in the ocean. There's always a southeast swell that comes in. So the first 2 days was 6 to 8 knots and not quite hiking conditions. And then the last day was windy. So going into the last day, I was in 6th place. And it got windy and had a good moving day. So it was great results. And again, just very, I didn't think I'd move up that much in that one, but I know I was moving up, but not that much. So it was pretty
middle of the pack, you had a couple of 11th places, I think is where it was. But
I had 2 11ths on one day, and one of those was my drop. Yeah, so I was struggling in that breeze a little bit. Normally the lighter medium stuff is one of my stronger suits, but everybody's going faster these days in that event. So
correct me if I'm wrong. The club is on a estuary, is it not?
Yeah, so you have to sail out through the intercoastal to get out to the ocean through the pass and stuff. If anybody's ever down the area, it's right next to Rabovich boatyard, and they have mega yachts down there ranging from 100 to 300 feet. Lots of them in their yard. They're working on them, so it's pretty impressive to watch the boats around there. But it's always fun to sail in the ocean because we don't get those conditions here.
Right.
When we do, it's really ugly out. But the water's 80 degrees, and the last day the wind was 12 to 18 knots, lining up with the waves, nice surfing downwind. So just a fun day of sailing. So.
The second race that you won was I'll let you explain that one.
That was the actual Masters Midwinters, and that was in Jensen Beach, and that sailed in the intercoastal. U.S. Sailing Center, Martin County is a sailing center down there. It was a 4-day event, Tuesday through Friday. The first day was medium winds, and the second 2 days were light winds. And again, I had my struggles and stuff. So going into the last day, I was in 4th place, and it got windy. 12 to 15 to 18, something like that. And I've got some techniques I've been trying to work on for going downwind, and it's really starting to pay off for me. And I felt strong going upwind, especially I was down there early in Florida. So I sailed about a half dozen times before I even started all this. So I felt really comfortable. Normally I go down there, sail regatta, and hardly have any time to practice beforehand. Right. So I felt really comfortable with my boat speed, and that kind of comfort translates into making smarter decisions and So yeah, it was. I was actually really shocked when I saw the results when I got back to my van to get changed on my wet stuff, and I looked at my phone and I like, what? I thought I moved maybe third, maybe second. I had no idea that I did that. So it's a couple of lucky things happen with black flags and things like that. But some guys, if he hadn't had that black flag, but he got that black flag and he was over the line early, But anyway, so it's coulda, shoulda, woulda, but it worked out in my favor and not in his. So.
Ken, you're kind of a humble guy, quiet guy, but winning that race is a huge deal. It really is.
Standing between the open doors of my van and jumping and screaming to myself, and nobody could hear me. So.
So there's a private celebration, right?
Yeah. Then I had to take a beer to Lee and then say, and tell him because I had to glow it to somebody. So.
Just a couple of questions. Now you're sailing a Radial. Just for the dumb guys like me who don't know the difference between Radial and a regular laser, just maybe a brief explanation.
They're different size sail plans. So the full rig is the lower section is probably 1.5 feet longer, and that translates into quite a bit more sail area and weight up top. So the ideal weight range for a full rig guy is 180 and up, and a Radial guy is more like like my range 150, 140 to 160 range is ideal weights.
Now, when I go to the golf course and practice at a driving range or I'm skiing and I'm working on something specific, do you do the same thing when you go out and practice when you're just out sailing? You work on those techniques and those kinds of things?
Try to, yeah. I spoke about that with my downwind stuff. I watched a video on YouTube and saw a technique for how to sit in the boat a little bit differently. And then last year, Lake St. Clair, we don't get a lot of surfing conditions, but when we do, Lee and I try and jump on the chance to get out there and practice and try those things and see, that's where we try and play around a little bit and see how it works. So.
You mentioned Lee. The name is Lee Savage. He's also part of the Crescent Sail Yacht Club. He's
past Commodore. Yeah.
Past Commodore. Another unbelievably good laser sailor. As you get older, you're a Grand Master. Am I correct?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Explain what a Grand Master is as compared to a Master or a Grand Master.
Well, it's all by 10-year age divisions. It's so it starts out as apprentice. Well, actually, they just opened up apprentice. So apprentice is now 30 to 45 or 44, and then it goes to master. It's 45 to 54. And then grandmaster, where I'm at, 55 to 64, and then on up to great grandmaster. And then legends is the next tier behind that. We had 4 legends out there. We had one person, Edinburgh, who was 84 years old. The guy who was second place in the regatta from San Francisco, which was all light air for him anyway. But he was, he's like almost 80 years old. And these guys are sailing at a really high level. And it gives me hope to grow old to watch these guys out there doing what they're doing at the age they're doing it at. So.
Question, just to follow up on one thing. As you get older, you get smarter, but as you go older, you also get weaker. It takes a bit of strength, I would think, to hang on to that laser especially in a heavier wind.
It's an extremely physical boat, and it's always work. I'm actually breathing harder after going downwind on a windy day than I am going upwind because you're working the boat so hard. And after a race, the heart rate's just so it's a extremely physical boat.
Fair to say you're smarter than you are stronger at this age than you were 10 years ago?
I don't know about that. I mean, look at those races where I did awful. It wasn't a boat speed thing. It was just brain cramps going around the race course and making stupid decisions. So I'd like to think I'd get any smarter as I grow older, but then I have days like that. Like, I don't know. So.
Could guys at your level, and one of the things I was looking at some of the national stuff, even from like the summer. I mean, there's guys your age that are at the top of the sport, even competing against guys in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing, as people grow older these days, they're still in pretty good shape. So we've got guys in certain levels who came off Olympic campaigns 10 years ago, and are in the Masters circuit. So they're not that far off of it.
One little quick point: you had a chance to you weren't traveling with Lee, but you certainly were at the same venues at the same time. What's it like to have a friendly face in town when, not that you don't know everybody else, but if it's somebody from your home club, that's got to be very helpful.
Yeah, it's nice, and we bunk together at the second place in Jensen Beach, and we do that quite a bit, and we travel, try and find some place to stay together. It's nice. It's very comforting, we know there's somebody there to help us with our boat because there's always people around to help you, but you've got that person, and we talk, beforehand and talk about the day and things. So it's nice.
Good reminiscence. Last thing is that it looks like the open water is about to hit Lake St. Clair. How far before we get the dry stuff on and be out in the lake?
It's very open out there. I thought about bringing one of my boats down to the club this weekend, but we'll see. I'm not I've turned into a warm weather sailor. I really have. So trying to don that dry suit on and go sailing. I really want to get out sailing again. So we'll see soon. It's water temperature is 36 at Belle Isle.
So the last question is that I don't ski anymore in the rain because it's just not any fun. So my question to you is, what's the allure of getting in that? You see Radial, you'll see a lot of lasers out there, even 420s out this time of year. You'll see them out in the water. What is it that goes through a sailor's mind? I sail, but I can't imagine sailing when I have to wear my winter clothes. It just doesn't make sense. Or is it just that much of a love of the sport?
Love of the sport, and I'm always practicing. Unfortunately, I've got that mindset that I rarely go out sailing for pleasure. I enjoy sailing. I enjoy sailing competition at a high level. And for me, getting out there on a windy day and crashing around and practicing things and pressing the boat hard, to me is a lot of fun. And save the socializing for afterwards. But I don't often go out sailing and just for sailing's sake. So
Last year, you guys put on some free clinics for guys try to build the laser fleet a little bit. Are you going to be doing the same thing this year?
yeah, I hope so. I currently own 3 boats now. Now my regatta boat will stay in the garage, and my other 2 boats will be at Crescent, and they're all rigged up identically, and they've got radial rigs for all of them. So I want to make sure they're there and available for people to use, and even put somebody who bought an older boat and say, hey, is this new rigging piece really worth it? I say, here, take this boat out, try it out. Let me know if you want to spend that, and we'll help you out. So.
Well, we'll certainly post up any of the clinics you guys are going to give. But just if I'm sitting watching this, if I'm looking at a boat, I've never sailed a laser before. What can I expect to maybe if I want to get into the sport? What can I expect to pay? I understand that there's a big range, but if I was just trying to get in it for enjoyment, what would it cost me?
People were getting starter boats for last year for about $2,000, $2,500. That's about, and then last year they're about $500 more than they probably should have been, but the demand was really high, and it still is now. So it's going to be somewhere in that range. You want a mid-range, you want a regatta type boat, it's going to be more in the 4, 5, 6 range. And up a new boat, I think now these days with everything is 10 or so.
Cool. Well, congratulations. I think you had looking for a great summer, and appreciate your time.
Great. Thanks, Greg.
Just wanted to say thank you to Ken Swetka for coming aboard and talking a little bit about his success this winter down in Florida. And we wish him continued success. The guys that sail lasers in the area are ranked nationally, and I think that's something we should be really proud of. So up next, we're going to talk to Liam and to Yuli Ghostwire about saving a guy's life. Just stay tuned. I think this is an incredible interview. Hi, you've probably heard the old sports adage that money means opportunity. That's certainly true in the world of sailing. And right now, we don't solicit very often for opportunity, but we're going to try and do that today. If you've enjoyed Inside Great Lakes Sailing over the last couple of years, and what hopefully will be a good 3rd season, we're asking you to jump on board a program that we're backing, and we hope that you'll take the time to do the same. If you're not familiar with Luke and Liam Walls, we interviewed them in the 1st season of our show, and both these Grosse Pointe student athletes are trying to make their way to the Olympic team. Well, that's a big, huge road to undertake. And part of that process is that they need some funding. They're on a 49er, which if you haven't seen it, looks like a giant praying mantis sailboat, if you're not familiar with it. And these are 2 of the nicest young men you'll ever be around. We're hoping if you've enjoyed even one segment of Inside Great Lakes Sailing, you will take the time to send them $1, $2, $3, or $4. We'll put the information up next to me here so that you can see that. You can talk to them about what they need. They're just looking for a little added support while they're going and finishing college. And we've had some Olympic stars come from our area. One of the guys that we've had great luck with is Bora Gulari, who's an Olympian. And we're just hoping that you can support Luke and Liam. If that seems to make sense, then cool. If you've enjoyed any part of this show, we certainly would appreciate you supporting them. So thank you so much for listening, and we appreciate any consideration.
Welcome back to another segment of the show. We're really fortunate enough today to have with us Uli Grossweiser and Liam Walls. We're just handed the U.S. Sailing's Arthur B. Hansen Rescue Medal for saving a life. And I'm going to be very brief about this. All the trophies you can win and all the opportunities you get in sailing, we're all about having a good time and the rest of it. But I really believe that this is one of the coolest things ever, that you take the time. And Uli, I'm going to have you start right off the bat and talk a little bit about where it started up in the Saginaw Bay. I know you saved a guy in a catamaran. I think his name is Matt Brooks. Can you take us through the sort of the scenario?
Yep. So we were sailing in a 3-day event. First day, maybe second to last race of the day. We were starting going upwind, and we were just looking across the course, looking for our competition coming across. We wanted to know whether we were in first or second at the time. Was a little worried about it. Where are they? How is it going to shake out? And that was the luck, because while looking for our other competition across the course, I saw something in the water which kind of I locked in on and started getting distracted a little bit because it looked weird. And I think that's kind of where you really have to be alarmed when something does look out of place in the water. When a person is in the water, it looks out of place. So we saw some little head bobbing, and I thought it was just a kite surfer who didn't know how to get out of water again and start surfing again. But it was weird. And Liam said, focus. He saw him, but he was more thinking there was somebody who would potentially want us to get out of the way so that we don't run him over. But then suddenly he heard some call for help, and then Liam changed immediately and said, "Go there, bear off, go there." And somehow it was all super quick. We just we sailed this boat for a long time, so we were just bearing off, going there, shooting in the wind. We didn't discuss really what we would be doing, but I thought I'd just park the boat right next to Matt Brooks. And Liam jumped in the water, which I really liked. I mean, he kept contact to the boat, but he basically pulled Matt to the boat, and we got him into the boat. What we didn't know what was going on before. He basically was a kayaker on the Saginaw Bay who wanted to watch the sailing. He's not a big guy, but he was big, too big for the kayak he was in. And he had no life jacket. It was maybe a 15 knots kind of day, beautiful sun, good waves. And he told us the story that he started deciding after watching the race for a little bit that he could go back in. And while he was paddling, he noticed that his elbows were in the water and something wasn't right. Basically, the water came in his kayak and started sinking. And the kayak had a little styrofoam block in it, and that was it. So the kayak was basically not keeping him afloat, and he was very far out.
Right.
Yeah.
Liam, this was a cram race, right? Which is the
Catamaran Racing Association of Michigan.
So, you do all kinds of overboard work, during the early part of the season. Everybody does at races, just to make sure you understand. Now you've got to do that on a catamaran. Talk about a catamaran versus a monohull, which has a little more stability. Not that there's anything wrong with the catamaran. I would think it'd be easier to save somebody, especially large like that, from a regular sailboat than a catamaran. Did that go through your mind?
Not really. It was pretty straightforward. We just pulled up, and our freeboard's only a foot off the water, so the guy could climb in the boat, within a few seconds. It wasn't anything crazy. I think if we had a normal keel boat with, I think average is like 3 foot freeboard, it would have taken a second to pull him in. So it was pretty easy to rescue him.
We're happy that Liam wasn't on the 49er when he tried to get him out.
Yeah, that would have been a mess.
If you ever sail or ever boat on the Saginaw Bay, you realize how treacherous it can be. And 15 knot winds. What's a guy doing out there in a kayak without a life jacket? Did he ever say anything about that?
It was a nice day.
It was a nice day, and I've been kayaking too. I was on smaller lakes, and I think I have to look back at pictures whether I was wearing a life jacket. I mean, as long as you're on a river where you can stand, that's one thing. But when we go to an open lake, I think I'll think a little different. And basically for us on the catamaran, there's no choice. I mean, we don't get scored without a life jacket. But also when you flip on a catamaran, which happens quite a bit, and you get separated, you can't swim as fast as this boat goes on the side, and you need that life jacket. That's very important for this kind of stuff.
Liam, And I'm going to come back to Uli and ask the same question, but Liam, what's it? I don't think you think about making a rescue, but then you're sort of rewarded for it. Is it hit you that what you did and sort of, does it resonate, or is it just sort of every day? It's just kind of what happens every day.
I think this is something that anyone in the cramp fleet would have done. So I guess it really hasn't resonated. And I like John isn't here, but John Harper, A-class sailor, was also on the scene with us and helping out. So I think if it wasn't us who saw him and made it there, definitely someone else from the fleet would have pulled up and helped him.
No, and I get that, but I look at it as like extraordinary. You saved a life. How often do we get to do that in our lives? And I'm not suggesting you don't appreciate the award. I'm just saying, looking at it from the outside and looking at you guys, I just think it's an extraordinary act. And it also brings up to, and Uli, you can talk to this a little bit about those guys, all of us sailing in the summer, in the early part of the season, maybe paying a little attention to the life-saving activities that just kind of walk through those things to make sure you understand it on your boat. You guys went through it in a real life situation. Talk to that a little bit. And then does it hit you that this is kind of a big deal, Uli?
It does, but as Liam said, right, this wasn't that we had to go through some crazy, dangerous things to pull Matt out. And we pulled him out and we tried to not tell him. Liam was even more graceful than me, but not telling him who we were. And we just sailed off in the sunset. But I know very well that we made a big difference that day. And honestly, from what I heard from Matt, this was the last chance somebody could have done it. So if he wouldn't have seen him, this would have been devastating. And I thought about him at Christmas, and whenever he posts, he's a fantastic guy, full of life. I got to show this. He made us this fun trophy. So he's a real fun guy, and a lot of people are thankful that we were there, and we know that made the difference, even if we didn't risk our life for this one. But yes, you need to practice on bigger boats, especially. It needs to be part of your training program to do man overboard maneuvers. You should be able to get somebody out of the water, not only the skipper. It needs to be, if the skipper goes overboard, you need to be able to get him out.
When you save somebody, as an old lifeguard, I can tell you that you don't take any situation saving somebody, because you don't know what you're coming upon, especially if somebody's panicking. And it can be the greatest day in the world and can be calm, but if you get a large person that's panicking and thrashing around, it can become a pretty interesting scenario. Quick question, Uli, is that trophy, is that now going to be the sort of the front of your trophy case on the mantle, as probably one of the more important ones you guys have won, or at least been honored with?
As you say, this is the most meaningful trophy one can win.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to point out, U.S. Sailing gives these awards out not very often, and it's not like it's an annual deal. It's given when extraordinary circumstances happen, and you guys were fortunate enough to be honored, in that situation. I got to ask, this is kind of just an inside baseball question. You're in the middle of a race. I'm assuming at that point, that leg of the race, or at least that particular part of the race, you're done for that race at that point, right?
Yeah.
I know it's a dumb question, but you're often saving somebody's life. They don't give you credit for going fast, but I would, not that it mattered.
Yeah, Matt was worried about us not winning the race. He didn't know anything about it or the weekend, no. So he made us the first place. But you get redress when you help people, I think in any race. So,
Liam, you guys run an 18-foot catamaran?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and you got a three-man crew in that situation, right?
Two person.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
and Sean
I just
Harper,
think. Go ahead.
Quickly on Sean Harper, he was there. He was actually headed to Matt Brooks before us, and we just shot in front of him. We were there faster then. And then we just had that split-second thought like, hey, John, you're good with your super light, high-performance catamaran, where you would potentially flip if you try to pull him in. Let us do this. We had a very sturdy, the F-18 is pretty sturdy, And so we were able to even rescue the boat, which no chance on the ACAT, I think. So yeah, as Liam said, we want to shout out to John Harper as well, who got a medal as well, for being ready to rescue Matt.
Listen, I can't tell you how terrific this is, and obviously the award you guys have won has been exemplary, and it's something that I'm sure everybody will be talking about a good part of the summer. I just wanted to publicize this a little bit because I think it's pretty terrific.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just that idea of going back and making sure that you do your due diligence and work on those safety keys on your boats individually, because obviously this is a good point of reference.
One thing I also say about Matt, he bought a powerboat. That's okay. We'll go and visit him in Port Huron and take a nice spin with him. But not only bought a powerboat, he's now going through classes and learning it the right way, how to navigate, and even what to do in case of emergency. So he's taking this the right way and take it serious. I'm very happy. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I appreciate your time, and I think it's terrific. And again, appreciate your time.
Thank you, Liam, actually, and thank you, Greg, for putting this together.
Want to thank Uli and Liam for reminding us that safety is the most key component on a sailboat and what it's actually like to sail and save somebody's life. We applaud them, as does U.S. Sailing did, and we look forward to a nice, safe summer. We also want to thank Ken Swetka for coming aboard and talking a little bit about his success this winter down in Florida. He's a great laser sailor, and we're blessed on this lake to have a lot of those talents. And we certainly want to thank Bora Gulari for taking the time to talk to us a little bit about his world and Olympics, and just a really interesting interview. I thought it was really insightful. We look forward to our third season. We hope you enjoy it. If you get a couple seconds to take a look at hopefully the pledges for Liam and his brother. Take a couple seconds and send them a buck. They could use some help, and that address will be up here at the end of the show. We look forward to working with all the guys in the back and what was going to be a great show over the next 24 weeks. For all the guys in the back, my name is Greg Norman. We'll see you next week.